pillars in the stream, hoping for what's true. I'm trawling for honor in this shallow pool. Borealis starlit crown arches over the Puget Sound. Berenice's hand
You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with our host, Gary Anderson.
And that song is done by Earl Grey. It's called Seventh Sister. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. This is Gary with James Kirschbaum, our news guy, and we have Joe Taylor. Joe, well, what we were talking about before we went to the commercial break.
I was kind of leading up to how I got into fossils, at least in a big way. After the mob burned me on that ceiling stuff I was doing, painting in their place over there, went to work for La Brea Tar Pits. So once you get into the fossil world like that, if you're friendly, you know, like Texans are, you'll make friends. You take the trouble to go to people's places, hear their stuff. So one thing led to another. And I was, you know, before I knew it, I was up to my neck in the fossil world. We get into the fossil world, you get into giants. You get into giants, you get into the Nephilim, you get into the hybrids. And so all of a sudden, all these things like Bigfoot, Beast of Bray Roads, you know, the Atlet, all these things, you begin to think, well, okay, if there's merit to this whole Nephilim hybrid thing, are some of these things, are they hybrids? Are they Nephilim? Are they just unknown animals? And I try to caution people, you know, when you hear something weird, like the Lake Worth monster down there, one of my, a guy I know I think he was the one that actually saw the thing and reported on it. You know, a lot of people say, it's just nothing. You didn't see anything. Well, okay, they're not going to look into it because they don't want to know anything. They're satisfied with what they already know. And others are immediately going to say it's demonic. And I go, well, wait a minute, you know, maybe not. There's some animals out there that look pretty bad. They're just an animal, you know. So are some of these things possibly animals? Or then you get into weird stuff. Could they be a hybrid? Cross between a fallen angel and an animal cross between, you know, all that stuff. Getting some real weird stuff, and a lot of people don't want to go there. But, you know, if you're interested in understanding things, which I am, I want to know what these things are. Somebody's going to give an explanation. I'd like to know the truth. So that's kind of why I'm into it. That's sort of how I got in. The depths of it was with the La Brea Tar Pits.
Well, how long you been doing this, Joe, for? Well,
I started... I found my first, I said it was a dinosaur tooth. It's actually a great white shark tooth in a gravel pit up here in Florida, Texas, back when I was 13. We were out, it was Sunday, we were out playing around the church, and there's a pile of gravel. So I just didn't have any idea that I'd live right out there at Mount Blanco in the country in the midst of all these vast fossil beds. I just didn't have any idea. But when I got into the Brea Tar Pits thing, that was 1980. Before that, I'd been back to visit my folks. I was out in California, and I came back to Texas here. We went out to the canyon out here, Blanco Canyon, where I grew up around, and finding arrowheads and stuff. And I found what turned out to be a buffalo bone. I think it was a vertebra of a small buffalo. And I thought, wow, man, there's this stuff out here. But again, I didn't realize that the Blancan type locality was just up the road. I'd driven by it 1,000 times, you know, as a kid, to the white cliffs there called Mount Blanco. And underneath that whole layer around the canyon of white dirt was mastodon, mammoth, horse, giant horse, three-toed horse, giant hyena, birds, all kinds of stuff. And if I'd have known that, I probably would have dug up half the canyon before I left Texas, or I would never have left maybe. But that's, so in 1976, I went out to hear a creationist guy named Dwayne Gish. I believe Dr. Gish debated the main paleontologist at UCLA there in California. And this guy the deal was he's going to make old Dwayne Gish look like an idiot. And the reverse kind of happened. It was really kind of surprising because Dr. Gish had a dossier of about an inch and a half, 2 inches thick of actual scientific papers. This other guy just came out with nothing, kind of an arrogant attitude, and pretty soon realized that, he was up against somebody who really knew something and really knew his whole doctrine better than the scientist did. So he immediately starts attacking Dr. Gish personally, trying to run down his religion and all that. And Gish never said anything about his religion. He was just, quoting scientific facts and knowledge. So at that point, I thought, well, these guys know what they're doing. And I realized that none of them had any bones. Because most academics back then, if you got a PhD, that meant you were in college, and you're going to have to teach college or teach somewhere in order to justify that degree. Well, if you do that, you're not going to do very much digging. And that's been the problem all along for professors in universities, and whether they're creationists or evolutionists. It's difficult to spend any time out in the canyons, the Badlands. So that's when, in 1980, when I, got into this whole thing with the Larry tar pits, I said, I can go out there, I can dig this stuff up. I'll find out what it's all about, because I knew all these paleontologists, these secular guys. Some of them were, avowed atheists and all that. But, I don't care. Just tell me the facts. I don't want to hear any, theories. Just tell me your facts. Well, the facts are all over the place out there. So I started gathering facts and friends in the business. And but because I'm an artist, I learned to make molds, because I was hired to sculpt a little tailor guy for a dry cleaners there in Hollywood. So I sculpted the things, bas relief, made a mold of it, figured out how to make a mold of it, made a cast in fiberglass. So I knew a little bit about molding. And because I could restore bones so that even the guys at La Brea Tar Pits couldn't tell my restoration from the real bone, that's what allowed me to have a business. Because I didn't have a PhD, I didn't have a degree at all in any kind of science. But I began collecting papers and talking to all these guys and drank 1 million cups of coffee. And that's the best way to learn from them. Then you go to their labs, and they give you all these papers about all this someone spent years to develop. And they're facts. They're not, they may speculate at the end that I think this was 30 million years ago and it blah, blah, blah. But that's all speculation. You can just throw that stuff aside. But the facts are they dug up 3-toed horses, and with that was this giant something or other. So those are the facts, and you can measure all that stuff. Those are facts. So you take those facts, and you begin to develop a understanding of what's in the fossil record. At the same time, you have to pay attention to modern-day biology, understanding of animals. Well, I grew up on a farm, so I had a kind of a jump start there. And I just I wanted to know about everything. And knowing about everything means you try to understand anthropology, which is study of man. I thoroughly understand evolutionism, and I thoroughly understand what the Bible says in contrast to that. I've read all the creationists. I know most of those guys, and I know tons of these secular guys. But because I could mold and reproduce, because I was a portrait painter, I could paint a bone to look so close to it. In fact, I fooled myself a couple of times. I had actually a cranium to a big head butter, and I made a reproduction of it, and I cast lead inside, so it was exactly the same weight as a real bone, which was real heavy. I think it was like half a basketball cut in two.
Uh-huh.
And I painted it, and I left one little triangular spot unpainted, or I didn't paint it like the bone. And I shipped the thing off to a client. Then I got to looking at it. I go, oh my gosh, I've sent the real thing off. So I fooled myself. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, a portrait painter is supposed to be pretty good. So that really opened doors for me with these other paleontologists.